Hey guys, so tonight we're going to talk about the rights of Englishmen, or in essence, how absolutism does not take hold in England. You can see our SOL below what we're going to talk about tonight, and let's go ahead and jump in and start talking about it. So first we're going to talk about Charles I. Charles I is King of England at this point in time, and he has a really bad relationship with Parliament. He's fighting a lot of wars, and Parliament doesn't want to pay for them. They don't get along with each other, mainly because Charles I has a Catholic wife, and his personal religious practices make Parliament uneasy about him. They don't trust him. They think he might be Catholic too because of his wife. And there are Puritans in Parliament. Puritans are people who believe that the Protestant Church or the Anglican Church in England are not fully reformed, that they're still not fully practicing Christianity the way that the Bible outlines it. So they want to purify even the practices of the Anglican Church. So they really distrust Charles because they think that he has Catholic influences, that he might be Catholic, he's married to a Catholic, so they don't like him. So Charles he asks Parliament for money for these wars all the time, and he comes in 1628 and is asking for more money for another war, and Parliament says, no, we're not giving you any money unless you sign the Petition of Rights. Charles wants his money, so he goes ahead and he signs it. The Petition of Rights limits the power of the monarchy. This is important because it sets the precedent that Parliament can limit the powers of the monarchy, that Parliament has control over the monarch and their powers. A precedent is when you make a decision that is used to make future decisions. So it kind of is set as a guide for how to make decisions in the future in similar situations. So this happens in the United States all the time with Supreme Court cases. When judges in the Supreme Court make decisions on cases, they look at how previous cases have interpreted our Constitution and use those precedents, how they ruled in the past, how the Supreme Court's ruled in the past, to make decisions on the current cases they're using. So that's what the Petition of Rights does here. It sets the precedent that Parliament has control or can control the monarchy. So, a little bit down the road in 1641, Parliament passes more laws that limit the power of the monarch. This upsets Charles I a lot, and he flees to the north of England. He also controls, he's the king over Scotland and Ireland at this point in time, so he has support in the north, and he flees to the north. This starts the English Civil War, which lasts from 1642 to 1649. So there are royalists and there are royalists or cavaliers. They're the same people, and they're the ones who are loyal to Charles. They are the supporters of Charles. So royalists or cavaliers are both supporters of Charles, just a different name for the same group. Then there are the Roundheads, and those are the people who are opposing Charles. They are called Roundheads because the Puritans in Parliament were these Whigs that gave them like a round-shaped head. So they called, and the Puritans in Parliament were the ones who were really against Charles. So they call anyone who's opposing Charles in the English Civil War a Roundhead. Now, they're fighting this civil war between the two groups, and the turning point in the English Civil War is really when Oliver Cromwell comes and he takes command of the Roundheads. So he becomes a general for the Roundheads, and he's the turning point in the war. By 1647, they capture Charles I, and by 1649, they put him on trial and execute him for treason against Parliament. That's huge. That's unheard of in England. You don't execute a king for treason against Parliament. Usually you're executing people for treason against a king. Remember, King Henry executed his own wives left and right for treason against him, but Parliament wouldn't have charged Henry with treason against Parliament, and just was unheard of. So this is a huge deal. Again, in setting the precedent that Parliament has power over the king. So that's the rule of Charles. So once Charles is executed, Oliver Cromwell, that general for the Roundheads, takes power. He dissolves the monarchy. You can see there his dates that he was ruling. He dissolves the monarchy. He dissolves Parliament, he gets rid of the monarchy in England, and he becomes a military dictator in England, which just means he is the sole ruler of England, and he maintains his rule and his power through a strong military presence. He was that general, so he has a lot of military backing for him, and he becomes the sole leader of England. So under his military dictatorship, he institutes Puritan morality, which just means that he is following the practices of Puritans. And some of those practices were no dancing, there's no gambling, no theater, no playing sports. Those kind of things were seen as immoral for Puritans. So he institutes Puritan morality throughout England. Cromwell does practice religious tolerance, though, for everyone except for Catholics. No religious tolerance for Catholics in England under Oliver Cromwell. Well, by the end of Cromwell's rule, people aren't really happy. They don't really like the way that things are being run in England anymore. And when Cromwell passes away, Charles I comes back. They bring Charles II back to rule England. So he was a descendant from Charles I, one of his sons, and they bring him back in to rule England again as a monarch. This is called the Restoration. So the Restoration of 1660 is just when Charles II is brought back and the monarchy is reinstituted in England. That's the Restoration. So Charles II rules. You can see him on the left. He's kind of a funny figure. But Charles II was unable to create an heir. This is a common problem in monarchs in England and throughout all of Europe, probably because of the inbreeding. They married family members to family members all the time, and monarchs are often left without heirs. So Charles II has no heir, and it creates a problem for Parliament yet again. They don't know what to do because James II, Charles II's brother, is Catholic, and when Charles passes away, the monarchy would pass to James II, and they don't want a Catholic king again. So in Parliament, yet again, there are two sides to this debate. There are the Tories and the Whigs. So the Tories are the supporters of James. They are the ones who want James to be king despite the fact that he is Catholic. The Whigs are those who are opposed to James becoming Catholic. Tories and Whigs are super important in England because they are the beginnings of political parties in England. This is the first lights of democracy developing in England with the Tories and the Whigs, who developed into political parties. They were the predecessors to political parties in England. So James II takes the throne when Charles II passes away. So despite the debates in Parliament, James II does take power. He is Catholic, and Parliament fears that they will have a line of Catholic kings if he has an heir and he remains king. He dissolves Parliament. James II dissolves Parliament when he takes control, furthering Parliament's fears of him and his rule. And so Parliament actually encourages or invites James II's own daughter, Mary, and her husband, William of Orange, to overthrow James and his rule, to take the throne from her own father. And so they do. William of Orange and Mary say, sure, we'll take the throne away from James, and William marches his army into London in 1688. This is known as the Glorious Revolution, when William marches his army against his father-in-law to take the monarchy from him, to become king of England. And the Glorious Revolution was bloodless. James II, seeing this army come in against him, flees. So no blood is shed, and William and Mary take the throne as King and Queen of England after the Glorious Revolution. So what does England look like under William and Mary? So William and Mary take control from her father in the Glorious Revolution, and they institute a constitutional monarchy in England. This means that there is a monarchy still. They're the head of the government in England, but there are limits on their powers. That's what a constitutional monarchy is, a monarch with limits on their powers. They vow at their coronation that they are going to rule England with Parliament, that they and Parliament will rule England together. And so under William and Mary, the English Bill of Rights is passed in 1689. And the English Bill of Rights lists those limits on the monarch's power that come with a constitutional monarchy. This is another huge step in England towards the ideas of democracy. So there's the English Bill of Rights, they're vowing to rule the country with Parliament, and this is extremely important. It decreases the power of the monarch and increases the power of Parliament. So that is England in a nutshell at this time. You can see how it's very different from France and Russia that we talked about in last night's video, where the monarchies are pulling all the power into themselves. They're centralizing their power. They're ruling their countries and their people absolutely and have all the power to themselves. And in England, William and Mary are letting go of the power of the monarchy and beginning to rule with Parliament, with a governing body. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk more about Unit 6 in our videos next week. Thanks.